Well, welcome to the In Search SEO podcast, episode number 27, where SEO knowledge is more rampant than lost tourists in New York City looking for Times Square. We have an amazing show for you today. Content all-star Kameron Jenkins comes on to talk all about the ever-versatile, full-stack content writer, the advantages of having a content generalist over a content specialist, how to find balance when writing any and all forms of content, and how content marketers can compensate for a lack of topical knowledge. Plus, we analyze the down-the-road implications of the announcements made at Google I/O 2019 and Google Marketing Live 2019. I am your host, Morty Oberstein, and let me introduce to you the new co-host of the In Search SEO podcast, Sapir Carabello.
Hi! I'm really happy and excited to be here. I'm a huge fan.
Really? You're a huge fan?
Yeah.
Wow. You didn't ask for my autograph before. I'm not that famous. Okay, so I can't tell you how happy I am that you're here, because do you have any idea how hard it is to talk for a half hour without any breaks?
I can imagine.
Yeah, because about 20 minutes in, I start dying, literally. So I am forever grateful to you. Welcome. I hope that you had a great time and a good experience here co-hosting. And do not forget, we put out a new episode of the In Search SEO podcast each and every Tuesday. You can look for it on the Rank Ranger blog. You can look for it on Stitcher, on Spotify, on SoundCloud, and of course, you can listen on iTunes. And by the way, I should start doing this. I don't plug Rank Ranger enough. Did you know that you can use Rank Ranger for all your SEO reporting needs, from search feature analysis to keyword research to keyword volatility, trend analysis, and so forth? It's all here with Rank Ranger. I don't know why I never plugged Rank Ranger. It doesn't make any sense. It is a Rank Ranger show, right?
Right.
So I'm going to plug a little bit. I'm allowed. It's okay. At this point, we're 27 episodes in. You know we're not about plugging for the sake of plugging. We're all about SEO insights. Okay. With that, shall we move on?
Yes, please.
Okay. As you all know, it's announcement season over at Google. First, we had Google I/O 2019. Then you have Google Marketing Live more recently. So let's get into some of the announcements, point out what they mean, what they imply, what they might bring down the road, for this is their SEO impact. So as a good nonconformist, I'm going to gloss over some of the big time items that were announced. For example, I'm skipping over everything related to Google Assistant. I don't care. I think it's all a bunch of smoke and mirrors. I don't think any of these changes will change the name of the game in any way, and I mainly don't care. Did I mention that I don't care?
Maybe once or twice.
No, okay. So what we're going to hit on here, we'll hit on the Evergreen Google Bot, podcast on the Serp, image updates, new shopping cart features, discovery ads, and a top story change that went completely and totally and utterly under the radar. So first up, and mainly because I have to mention it, the Evergreen Google Bot.
Google announced that Googlebot now uses the latest version of Chrome and will continue to do so automatically.
Ooh, so this is huge news. I had to mention it. We're going to talk about Google I/O 2019. In a nutshell, it means that Google's going to be crawling content using the modern inventions of the latest version of Chrome, not some outdated incarnation from 2015, which means you can use the latest technology and not worry as much about Google not being able to crawl the page because it's using outdated versions of Chrome. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's talk about podcasts.
Google is now showing links to specific podcast episodes on the Serp, such as this podcast.
Oh, and by the way, of course, Morty, we already know that. Why are you telling us about you can see podcasts on the Serp? Old news. True, but two interesting things. One, I've only seen two cases. I mean, I haven't looked at a ton of cases, but I looked at a lot. I've only seen two where the podcast episodes appear within the site's organic result, meaning if BillyBob.com is putting out a podcast on how to cook the best crawfish, well, then BillyBob.com does not get their podcast episode showing within their organic results on the Serp. Then who gets the podcast episodes appearing on the Serp? And I found that it's usually iTunes or Podcast One for whatever reason. So let's say I do a search for The Rich Eisen Show, which is a real podcast. It's a sports podcast that I like. There will be episodes on the Serp within the Podcast One organic result. And then when you click on it, you go to...
Podcast One?
No, you go to a Google page. And this is item number 2. Do not go to iTunes. Do not go to Podcast One. Do not go, do not collect, not go to Go. Do not pass Go. Right, that's what it is. Do not pass Go. Do not collect $200. Rather, a click on the Serp's play button brings you to a Google-owned page where you can now play that episode. Now, we did ask John Mueller if that meant that this was on purpose or if this was sort of just it's the beginning, it's the infancy of this new feature, and all the little details haven't been worked out yet. He didn't give a definitive answer, and I sort of gathered that he just didn't know yet. So, okay. By the way, all of this means audio featured snippets or audio rich snippets are coming, right? Google, as we've talked about here a few times, could get really creative with this, and it could add in all sorts of audio to feature snippets or to, rich audio snippets. That doesn't make any sense. Audio rich snippets. I got it right that time. Audio rich snippets. You can have audio content and knowledge panels, whatever your mind can conceive of. Because, by the way, I do like audio on the Serp more than video. I think it's a more natural media format, right? I can listen. I can move on to other tabs, and I can still listen to whatever I want to listen to. I don't have to keep that tab open in order to watch a video. I can play the play button, hear the audio, and do whatever I got to do at the same time. So I do think audio presents more creative possibilities, and it's a better fit for the Serp as it is. Okay, let's move on to images. So you assume I'm going to be talking about the new 3D images that you can integrate with AR and whatnot. That are, these are awesome 3D images on the Serp. Meh, it's cool. I mean, that's about it. It's cool. I don't really see any major SEO impact for it. Rather, a smaller and less notable change or less dramatic change, higher resolution image opt-in. You will soon be able to utilize higher resolution images for appearance within Google image search. Now, this is not a coincidence. First off, Google Discovery now uses larger image style, but it also comes as Google announced that gallery ads will be coming to the Serp in earnest. This format is a carousel of large images for your viewing and purchasing pleasure. They're not new. They've been tested on the Serp for a little while now, but now they are coming in full-fledged, earnest advertisement goodness, whatever. Which brings us to the real gem I want to talk about. Okay. Oh, man. Sapir, tell the good people what they've won with this one.
Google's shopping ability goes universal. You will soon be able to buy items right off the Serp within the organic results from YouTube and from image search directly.
Ooh, you can buy here, you can buy there, you can buy anywhere. Google's letting you buy via its partners, and it gets a cut from here, it gets a cut from there, and it gets a cut from everywhere. By the way, who still thinks Google does not have an ad or revenue problem? Anyone? Who? No? What's that? I don't hear anybody? No one? Okay, this is obviously Google's having an ad revenue problem. If it's going to lengths like this, okay. I mean, goodness sake, okay? The Serp, all of them, right? The YouTube Serp, the image search Serp, the regular Serp, whatever you want to call it, is going to be one giant shopping cart. I mean, literally, you're going to see a shopping cart icon all over the place, so you can add items and buy all sorts of things, so long as you don't commit the cardinal sin of going to they who Google shall never name, but we will, because it's Amazon. It's obviously all about Amazon. Do you want my take on this?
Do I have a choice?
Yeah. You could just close your ears. No?
No.
Okay, thanks. Okay. The new all-around shopping experience that Google's advocating so heavily won't make a difference. The numbers show, by the way, that around 50% of folks go right to Amazon. They never hit the Serp altogether. Okay, they just go to I do it myself. I personally never use Google or the Serp or for whatever purpose for products. I go right to Amazon. Unless there's something I'm trying to research, but it's very rare that, like, if I'm trying to buy a pair of shoes or whatever it is, I don't really need to research. I just go right to Amazon. Now, the biggest issue I have with all of this is that Google's getting all of the consumers associations wrong. What do I mean by this? Okay, so Peter, where do you shop for things?
On a website, in a store.
Yeah, okay, you shop in a place. The Serp or YouTube, my goodness, YouTube, is not a place. Okay, it's not how we're wired to shop. Okay, we want some sort of structure because structure, in terms of a purchase, means security, right? And we want structure, we want security. They go hand in hand when we spend our money. That's as simple as that. You need a place. The Serp is not a place. Google keeps ignoring the psychology of trust and commerce with all these changes that it makes, and when it comes to its shopping apparatus, whatever you want to call it. And it's time and time again. I don't understand why they keep doing this. Plus, by the way, all of this brings Google into a bit of an identity crisis. Okay, follow me here for a second. One of the least discussed changes is the one I wanted to bring up. One of the least noticeable or the least buzzworthy changes from I/O was to the news box, the top stories carousel on the SERP. Because soon you will have a timeline of stories. In other words, often in the news, a story develops over the course of days or even weeks. Let's take OJ, because everyone knows OJ. I mean, bizarrely, you can be in Cambodia or you can be in California. Everyone's heard of OJ. You're a little bit on the you're making me feel old. Let's put it that way. Have you heard of OJ?
What do you mean? Of course I know it's orange juice. Come on.
For real?
No? No, I'm just
Yeah, it
kidding.
is. Okay, you know OJ.
I know OJ.
Okay, because he's a famous football player.
Of course.
Right, that's why you know OJ.
And an alleged
Yeah,
murder.
right. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Well, let's not get into it too deeply on the InSearch SEO podcast. We're not about current events. We're about SEO. I don't want to get into it. It's painful. Okay. So you can't boil OJ into one article. It's a series of events that took place over the course of months. I mean, years, really. If you had one article in front of you, you would need to do multiple searches to put it all together, piece by piece, just to get a gist of things. Well, no more. Or soon to be no more, because soon you will have an entire timeline of articles being shown to you via the top stories SERP feature. In other words, think about it like this, okay? Let's say right now it's, in the mid-90s, okay? And you would see an article, you type in, OJ News. Okay, you would see a whole timeline of articles from the Bronco chase to the gloves don't fit to the civil judgment, all in one timeline, so you see the full story without having to execute multiple searches. Really cool, love it. Okay, but it does turn Google into a resource center. I know I'm getting off topic from my shopping expedition, but I'm going to come back to it. Okay, so Google's now a resource center. Basically, you have this whole. I mean, it is sort of for a variety of other reasons, but having a timeline of news articles like this turns it basically into a giant, encyclopedia of sorts. Okay, it's a resource center. Right? Are we a search engine, or are we a resource center? Rhetorical question. Oh, I'll answer it explicitly. It's a resource center. So Google's a resource center. Oh wait, I thought it was a shopping center. Oh wait, I thought it was a search engine. Oh wait, I'm really confused because the thing that has more than one persona is confusing. Okay, Google has more personas than politicians have affairs. It's absurd. I mean, you just look at the last 2 weeks. Tons of information coming out that makes Google into a resource center. Tons of information, tons of announcements rather coming out that turn Google into a shopping center. Which one is it? You have conflicting personas, and I don't have to explain this to you. Marketing 101, brand identity 101. That's not good. And I don't understand why they're doing that. Okay, this is my point with the new shopping proliferation. Too many things that are over the top, too many facets. Are we seeing Google jump the shark in order to keep its juggernaut status? Which would be interesting, by the way, considering that usually that happens when one company is threatened by another company. Here, okay, it's about maintaining dominance. I think I lost you. Jump the shark. No idea, right?
No.
Oh, man. Okay, Happy Days? You ever heard of Happy Days? Sunday, Monday,
okay.
Days, Tuesday. No,
I
okay,
guess.
it's a show from the 60s, whatever it is.
Why would I know what it is?
Because it's a
Come on,
classic.
Morty.
It's a classic. I mean, why don't you know? Ron Howard, he directed Apollo 13, all sorts of movies, right? Famous director. He was in that show. It's one of his first roles after the Andy Griffith Show. Now, I totally lost you, okay? Okay, so whatever. There's this scene where this really cool guy, Fonzie, the Fonz, okay, he is on, water skis, and he, jumps over a shark tank. And it was so ridiculous. So they called it, afterwards the show totally collapsed. It lost all its ratings because it got too absurd. And they call it, when something becomes too absurd and it starts losing its credibility, it's losing its credentials of being an authority or being something good and valuable, it's called jumping the shark.
Okay, good
From
to
Happy.
know.
Good to know. So
Wow.
now you can use that, and you should quote me when you do.
course
By
I
the
will.
way, speaking of jumping the shark, I should mention we put out a post last week about Google My Business monetizing. Okay, we saw a survey a couple of weeks ago come out that seemed to imply that Google may very much be considering monetizing Google My Business. To me, it's another jump the shark moment. So we could use that phrase again. Cool.
Ooh.
Nice, huh? Twice in one episode. And we put out a post last week going through how the changes that Google's made to local SERP features, Reserve with Google, product placements in the knowledge panel, and the local panel, all build up to Google monetizing Google My Business. So definitely check that out. Okay, onwards. We have a great interview with Kameron Jenkins of Soapboxly. Was literally one of my favorite conversations about one of my favorite topics, the versatility of the full stack content writer. And what's a full stack content writer? You're going to have to listen. So cut one. This is Radio Clash. Actually, sorry, punk fans. This is actually another version of the In Search SEO podcast interview sessions. So where do I start here? Joining us today is the founder of Soapboxly. You may know her from Moz. You may know her from Search Engine Journal and a slew of other places. You should definitely come to know her from the Mark and Method Marketing podcast. She is Kameron Jenkins. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Thank you for coming on. So I know you just started your own podcast. So is coming on here sort of like cheating, but on yourself?
I don't know. I think for me, it's a lot of good experience. I think I would love to get on any podcast I can get just because I think it's going to help my own podcast be better. So I'm still trying to, get over the learning curve, and it's been fun so far. Yeah.
Happy to help then.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about Soapboxly and what it is you guys do?
Yeah, so Soapboxly is, it started as a side hustle and something that I wanted to do to kind of streamline my own services that I handled on the side. And Soapboxly is essentially what I've been calling it is an organic growth agency. There's a lot of kind of up and down about, in the industry calling it SEO, or is this content marketing, or do you do both, or do you do one or the other? And I kind of just started saying, like, I do organic. That's what I do. And so that's what I do. Soapboxly is an organic growth agency, and it's very new. And so far what we've been doing is helping clients with a wide range of tasks. So some of them want more of the traditional content marketing, like editorial calendars and content creation on a regular type of basis. And then other people want help with a project, maybe they're starting a new website and they want, landing pages, and that's what I will help them with. And so it's kind of like the full gamut of content and SEO for the purpose of ranking organically and performing well organically.
No, that sounds awesome. Okay, so speaking of a wide range of tasks and to a topic that's very much after my own heart, we're going to talk today about the full stack content writer. And I just want to ask you, in a time and an age where everything is about specialization, how did you get to the point where you said, no, I'm going to throw all that away and I'm going to go with the idea of a full stack content writer?
Yeah, so I would call myself, I guess, an accidental nonconformist if I am one. So this kind of happened out of necessity. I mean, we were just talking about Soapboxly, and it was kind of born out of this whole, trying to decide what I am and what I want to describe myself and what I want to be. So digital marketing, I think you're right when you're talking about, there are definitely streams of thought when it comes to specialization, and a little bit of an echo chamber. I mean, I'm in it too. I'm sure you find yourself in it. And there's these same like kind of one or two opinions and ideas just floating around, and we all just confirm it and just keep like, this is the way it should be. And like everyone else is wrong. And so I think I kind of had to force myself out of that when I was trying to articulate what I wanted my company to be. I mean, I had to just look internally. I couldn't look to anyone else or anything else to get that information. So through the process of just talking it out with a lot of different people, I was just trying to articulate it and what I wanted to be. And I couldn't quite put my finger on it because nothing felt right. Nothing sounded right. Like I didn't want to call myself a content marketer. I didn't want to call myself just an SEO. And so talking to my husband, actually, so he's a software engineer. Oh, cool. And he was like, oh, that sounds like full stack. That sounds like in my industry, we would call that full stack. And I was like, oh man. And then it was just kind of a light bulb, and I just latched onto that. I loved that idea. He's like, full stack is the developers who are good at the front end and the back end, and they're kind of versatile and they can do it all. I'm like, I want to be that. I want my company to be that. So that is how full stack was born. It was definitely out of, looking internally and not externally.
Born out of necessity.
Yes, absolutely.
How does it feel, by the way, to be out of the echo chamber? Because there's definitely an echo chamber.
Oh, yeah, it's so true. And I mean, that's not to say I'm out of it necessarily. I think everyone is kind of, in any industry, honestly, is in somewhat of an echo chamber.
That's
I mean,
true.
We all have like the pillars in our industry, and we all look to them for those pieces of advice, and we kind of latch onto that stuff. And if we're not careful, we can just kind of believe it and adopt it for ourselves without kind of checking that. And it's not always bad stuff. It's just that, it's nice to kind of pull back sometimes and say, well, what do I think about this? Not what does Twitter like SEO Twitter think about this,
So I probably should have asked this first, but let me follow that up with, why is the idea of having a full stack content writer, why is it worth it to a company to have that?
Yeah, so I think it came out of my mentality of, I've done just about every type of content project there is. I have, been in the industry for a long time, and I've, done everything from, even PPC landing pages to white papers to, organic landing pages and blogs and things like that. And I think out of, doing all of those different types of things, I saw how much value there was in just kind of being able to zoom out and see the full picture. So by doing CRO, I was able to see how conversions are everything. If you don't have conversions, your clients don't get business. But then, doing SEO, I was like, well, rankings are everything, because if you don't rank, then you're not going to get visibility. So I just kind of was able to see how critical every single step in that process was. And so when I saw how important that was, I was, of the mentality that I needed to train my content team, when I was at an agency, train my content team to kind of think the same way. So I think the value in it is just being able to see those things as tools. And, I think my product is better when I'm able to see how every piece in the puzzle affects my clients. So I think, I was seeing SEOs getting, pages ranking, and they would forget to put a CTA on it or something like that. And it's like, oh, right. You're wasting that traffic. Your job is not just to rank, it's to get your client business. But then you get the writers who were they were writing interesting content, engaging content, but then the traffic would fizzle after they posted on social because it's not standing on the foundation of solid SEO. So I was thinking, this is really important. I think there's a ton of value in zooming out and seeing that full picture, because we want to be good stewards of our clients' budgets. So it was really out of the mentality of, I don't want to be wasteful. I want to make sure that I make the biggest impact for my clients.
So this is basically your way of dealing with the age-old problem of SEO versus actually dealing with your audience.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think, we kind of have a myopic view sometimes, and it's always healthy to zoom out.
This is great, by the way, because as opposed to seven easy steps to bridge the gap between SEO and content marketing, you've actually created a new idea. So kudos.
Oh, thanks. Sure.
So let me ask you, okay, to what extent, and I'm asking this out of personal, a lot of what I'm going to ask is in personal experience, because this is very much up my alley. Mm-hmm. I've gone on job interviews where they've asked, can you write this? I've said, yes. And then they've asked me, can you write this? And I said, yes. And they said, how is that possible? So, because it's possible. I don't know how to explain it. It just is.
Right.
With that, and I'm asking because there are so many people who are so set in their ways about this idea, to what extent is it actually possible for one person to master so many content disciplines?
Yeah, it's not common, but I think that's what makes it valuable. So even when, in the article I published for Search Engine Journal, I definitely wanted to make sure to say, I don't want anyone to feel like they have to risk their mastery of one thing to become a master of none. Essentially, they're becoming a jack of all trades and risking, not being as good at any one thing. But I think it's definitely possible to be good, or at least have an understanding of multiple different disciplines within digital content writing. So, but one thing that I'm maybe a bigger advocate for is cross-departmental training and cross-skills training. So when I was working at my agency, I kind of adopted this mentality out of necessity. So essentially what ended up happening was, I just kind of got sick of our tech team, doing things that tanked our traffic. And I was like, well, now I'm going to train our tech support team. And then I was sick of hearing, our salesman on the phone saying things like, yeah, sure, we could get you to rank in 2 months. I'm like, well, no, maybe, but don't promise that. And so just out of necessity, I was like, cross-departmental training is awesome. And everyone should just be more cognizant of the other pieces of the puzzle, because I think, whether or not you're going to become a jack of all trades, I think it's just important to kind of have that knowledge of other different types of skill sets. So yeah, I don't think it's entirely possible to be an expert in everything. You're definitely going to feel burnt out if you try to do all of those things. But I think it's a little bit, maybe even more, just about being cognizant of those other skills and doing things that don't harm other pieces of the puzzle, and maybe even contribute to making them better. So I do also think that if writers can adopt more of that type of mentality and do gain some skills in other areas, it will serve to their advantage, especially if they're trying to get a job or a freelance contract with a company who doesn't have a big budget, and they just kind of do need one writer to do it all. So I think as much as you can develop those other skills.
Yeah, that's definitely a big plus. Definitely a big
Yeah.
plus. I mean, I could just speak to it from an efficiency point of view that we have the same sort of thing where we have our, the content department, we have the SEO team. Having someone who can do both. Okay, everything we're going to write is going to go through an SEO audit anyway, but it just makes it that much easier for the person doing the audit if it's already halfway optimized to begin with. It just makes it more streamlined. There's less fighting. There's more cohesiveness, and there's less time wasted overall.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Do you see, okay, in terms of this, do you see any limitations, or is the sky the limit? Can a writer reasonably, ascend to great heights, or are there going to be inherent limitations in what they can do?
Yeah.
In general.
In general, I think that's, obviously a little bit hard to answer because everyone's so different.
Right.
But I do believe that people are truly capable of almost anything. Like if you set your mind to something and you want to learn it, I think that you can. So I think it's less a matter of being maybe capable of learning and being able to do all of these things. And a lot of it does come down to what you enjoy. So I definitely found myself in this situation, and I still do, to be honest, but the situation where I'm like, I can do certain things, like certain aspects of SEO I can do, and I can even be good at them, but I found myself not loving those types of things. And so I was feeling kind of really dragged down by that and burnt out anytime I had to do those types of tasks. So I think if you're a writer who is trying to be versatile and do all these different types of things, and you find that you just hate one component of it, you don't feel like you have to force yourself to do that thing for the sake of becoming like, oh, but I need to be like a full stack, well-rounded writer. If you don't enjoy something, I would say definitely don't do it. But I would say it's possible. If you want to do that and become a specialist in multiple different things, I think you can do that. But definitely listen to yourself when it comes to enjoyment, because it's never fun to do something out of pure obligation.
I mean, there's no shame in that. I mean, I'll give you an example. Technical SEO. I know it. It's okay. I don't particularly like it. I don't enjoy it. And I stay away from it as much as I possibly can. There's better people at it. And that's fine. I can admit it.
Yeah, I agree with that too. There's a lot of things that when it does come to technical SEO, I think, even on my own website, just launching like the Soapboxly website, there were things that I'm like, oh my gosh, like I don't want to minify these images, and I really don't want to focus on all these things. And so my husband's like, you know what, I'll do it. And he's, as a developer and someone with that background, like he was faster at it anyway. It didn't bother him. So
right.
Like, that's okay. I can do this, but I think it's okay to say, look, I'm going to delegate this.
That's a win-win. That's definitely a win-win.
Yeah, exactly.
So let me ask you, because I personally find that writing for me is a lot like acting, and I'm gonna make myself vulnerable here. I was watching a documentary on Netflix on Spock from Star Trek, in case you're living under a rock, and it goes through how when Leonard Nimoy was playing Spock, and he would get into the role, and it was such a hard role. He was so emotional. He would come home, and his kids, the son being interviewed, would say like, my dad would come home, and he would basically be Spock because it was too hard for him to get in and out of the role. He would stay Spock the entire time. I don't know if I would choose acting over my family, but okay, no judgment there on Spock. But I find the same thing with writing. If I'm in a technical SEO oriented mindset, I tend to lean towards that. There are times when I'm in a more creative mindset, and it's hard to find that balance. How do you sort of keep that zen? Because you sort of get into a way of thinking, and even though you may have multiple skill sets, you may be a full stack content writer, it's hard not to get into a certain way of thinking or operating and pull yourself back.
Yeah, that's definitely true. You sound like you might be similar to me. Like I am very much split between like right brain and left brain.
Yeah.
But they don't always work at the same time.
I'm a walking contradiction.
Yes, that's my problem.
Yeah.
I mean, half the time I get in this very analytical mentality, and I want to just look at data and I want to analyze things, and then the other half of me, I try to go into like creative mode, and then I'm only thinking about how to make this sound good or what the creative spin I could put on this. And you're right, it totally is hard to kind of keep your zen, and how do you switch tracks? I have found it helpful. I mean, it's always kind of a struggle if you're that way and you have a job that's both analytical and somewhat creative. But I've found it helpful to kind of compartmentalize. So what I'll do in some cases is I will do my research up front. I will say, okay, here's what I am going to do, and I'm going to do all of the research, sort of like I'm building a framework. And then after that research is done, I kind of put on my wordsmithing hat and I put on my creative hat, and I try to, you're still doing research, but it's more like research looking for inspiration.
Right.
And so it's like creative research. So I'm like looking for ideas. I'm looking to, I don't know if you're familiar actually with the Bon Appetit like YouTube channel. So
No.
they have like just really creative. I'm just a big fan of like food videos. And so I watched that quite a bit. And I was just thinking, I was looking at some of their videos the other day, like I do almost every day. And they had some great ideas. I'm like, I'm going to pull from that and use it for my content. And so that I would say is research, but it's more like, creative research. So I think when it comes to doing the two things, I try to like put on my analytical hat, and I think, what needs to be done in terms of moving the needle and what needs to be done in terms of, making sure that this shows up in search engines. And then I try to put on my creative, my human hat, and I go, what would be interesting to read? So it's kind of like, I'm building the canvas and then I'm going to put paint on it. But I mean, it is hard. It's always going to be hard, but I think it kind of helps when I take them as almost separate tasks.
No, it's really helpful to have a certain format, a certain procedure, how you go through it. I mean, for me, I just try to be, I should try to do that actually. I should try to first put on the analytical hat. I don't. But I find it that to be very conscious of it, to be very aware, okay, I know where I'm at. I know what this piece sounds like. I know what the last piece sounds like. I know what the piece before that sounded like. I can see where I am. I find that self-awareness sort of helps me out as well.
Yeah.
Again, speaking from, actually, no, I'm going to close the window because the kids next door are screaming.
Oh, sounds good.
Better than my own kids screaming. Sorry about that.
No worries.
Okay. Again, I'm speaking from my own experience here. I got into SEO due to my writing skills. It's a long, complicated, pretty much uninteresting story, so I won't get into it. But there are things, like we mentioned, that I'm naturally better at, things that I am not naturally good at. How do you compensate? Because that's a very stressful pain point, so to speak. I know that I want to do this, I need to do this, whatever it is. I know what I'm good at and I'm not good at it, or I could be better at it. How do you deal with not being proficient or not as proficient as you would want to be?
Yeah, it's a great question, and one I'm kind of always trying to explore. And I think when I think about it, it boils down to two things. Like if I'm not, I feel like I'm not necessarily good at one certain aspect of something. Number one, I just try to always think like a reader instead of thinking like the marketer. So I think the marketing or technical or any kind of aspect of what you're doing digitally for your customers, if you put yourself in your potential customer shoes, your audience's shoes, it becomes a lot easier because you think about it more just like a human. And I think the decisions become a lot easier. And it's not just about like, what's the right SEO thing to do or what's the right copywriting thing to do. It's like, what would I like? What would be helpful? Obviously with SEO, there's like that added element of like Google's algorithm is not a perfect human. So you have to kind of think about it that way and have a little bit more of a technical bent. But I think the other side of that, and not just thinking like a reader and thinking like a human, but it's leaning on people who are better than you. So I just think there's a lot of value, and it can be hard sometimes to admit that you don't know something, but to lean on people that do know things better than you, and just asking them for their advice sometimes, because that's how we get better. I mean, I think we were talking earlier about, asking, other people, delegating other things to other people. And I think that's really important. I mean, if you want to learn something and compensate for your lack of skill in a certain area, like there's really no exchange for like working with someone who is a pro in that area and just owning up to it and being like, I want to be better, help me.
100%. Definitely don't be afraid to learn. And it is painful in the beginning, but it gets easier at a certain point.
Mm-hmm.
Along the same lines, I have to ask, so when you do jump into something new, right? For me, I never used to work with images or graphics. And if you asked me a long time ago, 5-10 years ago, yeah, you're going to be working with images and graphics and deciding the whole graphic look of the marketing department, I'd be like, you're nuts, because that's not me. Mm-hmm. But it is me in the end. So that was good, actually. But jumping into a new area, it's just so overwhelming sometimes. It's very stressful, as we just mentioned. Do you have any tips or some concrete ideas? Or how do you prevent yourself from just becoming so overwhelmed by the fact that I don't really know what I'm doing? This is totally new. And if I want to develop, I'm going to have to learn this.
Oh man, if you find someone with a good answer to that,
that's why I'm asking, because I don't have a good answer to that.
Yeah, so
I was hoping you would have a good answer.
Other people's answers, but yeah, so I think if I were to answer that, it's obviously like I'm talking to myself as much as I'm talking to other people, but I think there is a lot of feelings of imposter syndrome in our industry just because it is fairly new. It's always changing. it isn't taught in formal settings. I mean, not really. So I think a lot of us struggle with that imposter syndrome because no one really knows like what's the right way to do things. And with marketing or any type of digital, it's really hard because in a lot of cases, a lot of roads lead to the same destination. So there's definitely a lot of quibbling over like, is this the right way or that the right way? And I think, when it comes to just trying things ourselves, a lot of us just feel like, well, I'm not good at this and I am so discouraged. And we feel not good because we're doing it differently than someone else. And no one really knows like the quote unquote right way to do something. So, I mean, yeah, I would just say like everyone is capable. And I just feel like it's good to, when you feel like you're lacking in a certain area, just to be transparent. So I think, yeah, it's really hard because like when you're insecure, there's nothing to really squash it until you kind of admit that you're insecure in a certain area.
Well, that's a good point. That's a good point.
Yeah, like it's just going to keep going in your head. Like I know the times that I am insecure because I'm like, oh man, I'm self-taught in this particular thing. I don't have the confidence to like do this well. Well, the only way to get that insecurity out of your head is to prove it to yourself one way or another that you're good at it or you're bad at it. So if you just do it, look at the results. And if, it was a positive result, great. Then you can have confidence knowing you can affirm yourself and knowing that like, no, I am good at this thing, and if the results aren't great, ask someone who is good at that, ask them for tips, ask them like, hey, like I did this thing, there weren't good results and I'm, struggling, like help me. So I think when it comes to like, just having confidence in these other types of areas that we're not sure we're totally good at, I think you just have to put it out there. You just have to like do something to prove to yourself one way or another. You do or you don't know. And that's the only way to like move past that.
I could just respond, amen. But but the truth is, everyone has this issue. First off, the industry is so diverse. I mean, diverse in terms of its people, but diverse in terms of what you could be doing. You could be, just in general, you're doing SEO, you're doing PPC, you could be doing content, and within each of these fields, there are a million different aspects that all intertwine together at some point, in some way. And everyone, I feel like, I could be wrong, everyone is to a certain degree is sort of faking it in a way. I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that it's just a natural. It is what it is, and you have to sort of fake it a little bit. And because, listen, there is a lot of self-taught out there. And I think it's inherent in our industry that for any given aspect or any given area, you're going to have to self-teach yourself.
Oh, yeah, I agree. You really do have to teach yourself and then help, teach others, and then others can teach you. It's very much just about, like, there is no rule book for this. There's no library full of digital marketing books that we can all go to and be like, now I know the answer. Like, and it's so dependent on every particular client. Like, there really are no universal truths. I mean, there are like best practices that if you don't do those things, like,
right. Don't keyword stuff.
Yeah. So don't keyword, don't do things that violate Google's guidelines,
right.
Make your site profitable, all of those things. Like that aside, obviously, like we should be doing those things. But when it comes to the other stuff, I just think that it's really important to kind of just do it yourself, test it yourself and see, because there really are no universal truths. So I think it does make us all feel like, man, I don't know what I'm doing, but it is a little bit, you feel like you're faking it until you make it.
Right. By the way, like you're always your own worst critic. A friend of mine he calls it, and it's not his, I'm sure someone else invented this, but he calls it missing tile syndrome, right? You redo your kitchen, you put in all the tiles, and there's one in the corner that's a little bit off, and you're the only one who notices. Right?
That's perfect.
So when you write something, when you're researching something that's new, and you put it out there, you're like, oh man, I don't really know what I'm doing here. More likely than not, you do. It does sound good. It does come off well, and you're the only one who notices that it might not be where you want it to be, kind of thing.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, we are our own worst critics. I know for myself, like I definitely, I've been working remotely for almost a year now, and I'm not used to that. I'm still just getting used to that. So I think when it comes to like helping with that, it's definitely lean on your coworkers, and I'm trying to find other ways to be able to do that, because you really like, you need that someone to unstick you. You need someone to kind of just be that verbal, like, just tell me if I'm crazy, or tell me, you need that kind of like external opinion to kind of get you out of that headspace sometimes, or else we will just spiral and just keep thinking, it's not right until someone's there to be like, you're fine, like calm down.
You need someone to break the rumination somehow. I know, as a fellow remoter, I get it.
Yeah.
So let me ask, before we sort of sum up here, in general, what are some challenges that you see being unique to full stack content writer? And what sort of traits do you see as being unique to being successful as a full stack content writer?
So I think one of the risks, at least for me personally, when I'm acting as a full stack content writer and I'm trying to, do a lot of different types of things. And over the years, I've kind of developed this like spirit of the law rather than a letter of the law kind of mentality. And so for me, that means that I might not always remember my Oxford comma, or, I might
for shame.
Yeah, I know. Well, I tend to annoy, I think. I mean, no one has been like, you're annoying, but I think I might tend to annoy certain like specialists, people who are like, I am very good at this one thing and I am like an exceptional copywriter. I'm an exceptional whatever. And I think I tend to annoy people who are in that mentality because I'm like, well, the spirit of it's there. Like we got the big picture. And I think that's the risk for me is when I'm focusing on so many things, I have the end goal in mind. I'm very pragmatic about what I do. I'm not as detailed sometimes when it comes to like the finer points of things. So that's, I think, potentially a risk. It's a risk for me. I just have to always remember, like, it matters to be exceptional when you're doing things, and have the end goal in mind and have the big picture in mind. When it comes to quality, though, I think like anytime I hired a writer, I always looked for like baseline. I have to just like the sound of their content, because that is the hardest thing / I think kind of even impossible to teach. Like there are some people who just have the skill and they can write prose that sounds good and it sounds like it's high quality and you like it. It's just natural to read and it's enjoyable to read. And I think that's the baseline. So that's when it comes to, digital marketing writing in any capacity, that's like my baseline quality. But I also think that some of the best writers I've worked with are the ones that have that ability to kind of look past like the myopia of what they're doing and see what they're doing for their client. They have the ability to step into like a client's shoes and see how they're trying to run their business, what their business goals are, and they can kind of become like a subject matter expert, not only for their client's industry, but for their client. They're almost able to kind of like take on that, wear that coat of I am my client. And I think people who have that ability to kind of step in that role and just really immerse themselves in their client's industry and who their client is, I think those kind of make some of the best writers because they're able to see their goal in the big picture. And I think they're able to adapt and become full stack because of it, out of necessity.
Well, that's really interesting. By the way, I know for someone who has not hired a writer before, having a baseline of can you string a sentence together may sound, no, that's kind of obvious, but you would be very surprised how rare that actually is.
Yes, there's a lot of people who, I've either interviewed or worked with in the past, and you read their writing and it's like, technically your title is writer, but like not everyone has that. I mean, this is English, you're stringing a sentence together. And I don't mean that to sound harsh. Everyone has different skills, and some people just, their content does not read well and it upsets clients. And you can't have that as a baseline. You really do have to be able to have someone whose content is nice to read. If you read it and you go, oh, that's kind of awkward. Like that's, I mean,
not good.
Yeah, that's not good. Just listen to that and just, I think for me too, sometimes I've been hopeful, like, oh, maybe I can teach that. It's been very hard. So I would just say, like, you have to love their content right off the bat.
Very much agree. By the way, don't feel bad about the commas. I used to teach English, and I still walk through a piece of content. I'm like, wait, comma here, not comma here? And by the way, one of the guys on the SEO team, he's fantastic at editing. And I'll send it to him, like, do me a favor, can you look at this? And he'll always come back, comma here, comma there. I'm like, oh, man, I should know this. I taught English, right? So don't feel bad, because I feel guilty every time.
Right. I think once you know the rules, you kind of like have more license, you think, in your mind to kind of break those rules. But it's still important to follow the rules.
It is. By the way, my problem with the commas, I use them when I write, I speak in my head at the same time. So I put in commas the way I would speak, but not the way you would write. That's my comma issue.
Oh, yeah. No, I totally do that as well. Yeah.
So I'm good. I'm good. See, this is great. It's the problem with remoting. I can't find anybody who has the same comma issue as me. But thank you.
Yeah, I identify with that.
Nice. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you very much for these amazing tips. This is one of my favorite conversations I've done this podcast. But before you go, I have to ask you to play a little game. I call it Optimize It or Disavow It. I'm going to give you two options, and you're forced to choose between either two really bad options and you have to choose one bad option over another bad option, which sucks, or you have to choose between two really good options and throw one really good option to the wayside. So this is the Kameron Jenkins version of optimize it or disavow it. So if you could do one or the other, again, it's zero sum. You don't really have a choice to do both. If you could write with sound SEO practice, or if you could write with a creative soul, which would you go for?
Oh yes, this is tough.
This is the age-old question, of course.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you want both. That's that's a given. That's why this is
That's why it's a problem.
Yep, that's why it's a problem. But okay, so if I had to pick just a baseline, like what you could have in life, and I can only pick one, I would say natural ability. Like I would choose to be creative because I think, if this is allowed, I would say like SEO can be taught, but if you can have one thing just like inherent, like as a baseline, I would choose creativity all day because, I think a lot of people can learn SEO. Kind of like, the last question we were talking about, it's a lot harder to be able to learn how to just have those intuitive, creative instincts. So I would pick that.
I'm so with you on that one. I know all the SEO folks are like, no, you can't do that. But I'm telling you, you cannot teach creative.
Yep, it's true.
Yep. All right, that is the end of our interview with Kameron Jenkins from Soapboxly. Definitely check out the link that we'll place into the blog post for this podcast to Soapboxly and check out her podcast again. Thank you so much for coming on. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. And we are back to your regularly scheduled In Search SEO podcast. I'm all in everything Kameron said, which is not always true. No matter how much I respect my guests, and I always respect all of them very, very much, it's hard to agree with somebody 100% because you just always have a difference of opinions and small minutia. Not here. 100%. Everything you said, I totally agree with. Which, by the way, brings us to the Rank Ranger In Search SEO community question of the week. Take it away.
As marketers, writers, or even SEOs, how do you compensate for your own limitations?
So when we're asking, here on the In Search SEO podcast, we're about getting in touch with our feelings. And I'm asking you to get a little bit vulnerable here, but there's nothing to hide from. Every single one of us has gaps, has shortcomings. Okay, I consider myself to be an all-around, a utility man. It's like the utility player in baseball. You have no idea what I'm talking about. A guy who could play every position in baseball. I'm versatile. Okay, I'm pretty good at doing different things. Okay, I've had a variety of careers. I've been pretty good at learning new things, but I have gaps. Okay, and we all have our tricks and methods for dealing with them. So I'm asking you, the SEO community at large, to share. Okay, I'll give you an example, a tip that I use. Okay, I guess the way my brain works, it's like I very much analyze things. I'm hardwired that way. I'm critical. I'm a cynic. So I use that. So I'm talking to somebody. Okay, I'm doing an interview, let's say, and I can't fully process the technical implications of what they're saying because the people we bring on the show are experts in particular areas, right? So it's hard. I'm not an expert in every particular area. I will freely admit that. We had somebody on, Zach Bedingfield from Colwell, about Google Ads automation. I am not an expert at all about Google Ads automation. Because how do you do an interview like that? I mean, obviously you do a lot of research beforehand, right? But one of the things that I tend to do is if someone's talking about something and I can sort of abstract out what the real life implications are of that, right? If you do X, well, what's the real life implication of X? And ask a question based upon that as opposed to going technical. As opposed to asking a technical follow-up question, I say, okay, so if we're talking about X, and X has so many implications in the real world, that's a question I'll ask over a technical question because I don't have the technical knowledge. So I just abstract out, apply it to the real world setting, and I'm able to move on that way. So you've caught me, okay? When you see me do that, it means that I didn't have a technical knowledge. There's a content gap that I've had, and that's a trick I use to solve it, which is fine. I'm totally okay with that. So now you know my tricks. Okay, so look out, by the way, for the community question. It'll be on the Rank Ranger Twitter account. You can find it on the blog post at Harbors This Podcast. You can comment right on social media. We have a form also in case you want to be anonymous or you just want to put it on a form for posterity. It will be there. You can look for it on Facebook. You can look for it on LinkedIn. We'll post it all over the place. Please, please, please. We love when you share your responses with us. It really does help the community, I feel. And it's always nice to hear new insights and sort of expand our collective minds. By the way, should take a look back at last week and see what you all had to say about last week's questions. Last week we spoke about local link building with Garrett French, and we asked what works for you when running a local link building campaign. Marcus Miller chimed in, who, by the way, has some really great search engine land columns out there. And he chimed in by recommending to start off by analyzing which sites are linking to the competition within the local market. The idea being, by the way, and to quote Marcus, and it's to get an understanding of what types of links exist in your location niche, rather. With this information, Marcus says, you can then look for similar links that none of your competitors have. So solid tip right there, folks. Thanks, Marcus. By the way, you can find Marcus on Twitter at Marcus Bowlerhat, MarcusBowlerhat, because he is the founder of bowlerhat.co.uk. Okay, Sapir, I'm so glad you're here because I do not like doing the news by myself. I have been the last 2-3 weeks where Kim has not been here. I've been flying solo, and each time I've been complaining about doing the news. So, being that you're here, could you please hit it with the news?
With pleasure. Okay, so Google Marketing Live brought us a number of new changes, which we discussed a bit earlier. These announcements include Discover feed ads, gallery ads, a large carousel of images reflecting products, showcase shopping ads, which are a cluster of images that you can expand. They will hit YouTube and the Discover feed. And lastly, Google will let you purchase directly from the Serp, image search, and YouTube.
Yeah, so by the way, Discover feed ads don't make so much sense to me. Okay, Discover is all about, by the way, it's in the Google app. It's also on the mobile homepage in the US. I think in the UK also. It's carefully curated content that's placed there based upon your previous search history or YouTube watch history. Meaning the content there is specifically there because they further the interest that you are already interested in that Google knows because you have searched for it or watched it on YouTube. How do ads fit into that? Where does an ad fit into the Discover feed if the whole idea is custom curated content based upon your interest, not what someone is putting out there in an advertisement? I'm just saying. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so Google is bringing its Trip Center on mobile to desktop. By heading over to google.com/travel, users can now plan out their flights and hotels on desktop.
Yeah, so it's really interesting, by the way, that... Okay, so first off, Google's adding these new features, right? They're showing you hotels you already viewed. They're offering you new attraction suggestions once you're on your trip and so forth. All this, to me, I'm banging on the drum for a while. The travel sites, the booking sites need to pick up their game. Instead of trying to shove a car rental down my throat, which I've mentioned on this podcast before, offer me some real insights. So I blame you guys mostly, not Google for this one. Okay, sorry for the little peeve there.
It's okay.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, let's continue. So Google also has again updated its quality rater guidelines. This is the first change since the summer of 2018. Most notably, Google has changed a lot of its language around EAT to page quality.
Yeah, so, okay. There are a bunch of changes. The SEM post, Jennifer Slag has a great write-up. You should definitely check it out. We'll link to it in the blog post for this podcast. So what's confusing here is that Google changed a lot of the EAT language, EAT, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness, to page quality, which seems to indicate that the two terms are interchangeable. Yet, in some instances, the EAT language remains, the EAT language remains. So why weren't they all changed? Why weren't all instances changed? Personally, okay, so which means, by the way, it raises the question, like, is EAT synonymous with page quality or not? I mean, I think that it is, because to me, this was about Google not being happy, in my opinion, and of course I'm speculating, and of course I'm being cynical, but that's okay, it's my prerogative. Google wasn't happy about the conversation around EAT and the algorithm and all that stuff we've been jiving around about for the last couple of months in the SEO community, so it changed the language in the quality rater guidelines to sort of diffuse that I don't have a good word for it. That I'm at a loss of words. Wow.
That's a first.
Yeah, that is a first. Thank you. In order to diffuse that, I guess what it thought to be was a ticking time bomb of sorts. Okay, I found a good way to phrase it.
You never failed.
I know. Yeah, eventually. I get there eventually. Slow and steady wins the race. Okay. Take it away.
Okay, lastly, Google no longer plans on offering a specific image search referral URL. The idea was to make it easier to separate out traffic that came from image search from other Google referral traffic.
All I have to say here is Google giveth and Google taketh away. By the way, one of the things was they didn't make an announcement about it. It came out like someone saw an update to the blog post that Google had on this, and it was a whole big faux pas. Okay. Thank you very much for doing that.
You're welcome.
I really don't like doing the news. I like we have the news on the show.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't like reading it.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks. Okay. So now that we have a brand new and wonderful co-host, I can now subject her to having to deal with the fun SEO send-off question. So it's been a great show, and much thanks to you, Sapir. But now, as we reach the end of the episode, could you please tell us, how does Google handle rejection? I'll go first. You're new. It's your first time. It's your first crack at it. As I get it. Okay, I'll start us off. Because what the heck question is that? I get that's the whole point. It's like, what the heck question is this? Okay, so while most folks, after being rejected, may dive into a long and hearty binge into all sorts of foods or chemically altering beverages, you can figure out what that is. Google, on the other hand, just de-indexes its rejector, never to have to render them on the Serp again and rehash all of those painful memories. Now it's your turn. Take it away.
I mean, I don't know. Google might act up like one of those creepy guys that just can get a no for an answer, you know? Yeah, it's a long story. Don't ask.
and I won't ask.
Yeah.
And we're gonna leave it right there. Thank you so much for joining us on the InSearch SEO podcast. We hope you tune in again and join us next Tuesday for an all-new episode with an all-new search marketing expert. It's in search because we're all in search of something. Thank you.
Thank you.